Good afternoon, everyone. We will begin the May 22nd, 2024 Taxicab Advisory Committee meeting. Clerk, please call the roll.
Okey-dokey. Shanila Rivera,
Present.
Abel Seifu, Agustin Horoyan, Akbar Majid, Zidu Girma, absent. George Abraham,
Here.
Antonio Hueso, absent. Letty Canizales, Jose Raúl Alcantar, Mikael Hussein, absent. Daryl Mayakawa, Michael Anderson,
Here.
Michael Trimble, absent. Alfred Banks, Margot Tangwe, David Taysom. Okay, that's it. Chair, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you so much. We will move to non-agenda public comment. Before we do that, I want to welcome Mr. Alcantar, our CBX representative. Thank you for being here. Appreciate your presence. And with that, we also do, is there another representative, Lenny Eduardo Gonzalez? Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Let's then move to non-agenda public comment.
We do not have any public comments.
All right, then we will move to our approval of minutes. I will welcome a motion to approve the minutes. Oh, sorry, we'll take public comment on the minutes if there is any.
There is none.
Okay, all right.
So moved.
All right, we got a motion to approve the minutes. Thank you, Mr. Majid. Is there a second? We got a second?
I'd like to remind you guys to unmute your mics when you do the second.
So we've got a motion from Mr. Majid, a second from Mr. Taysom. I see no request to speak on this item. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. Anybody opposed? All right, that motion passes unanimously. And we will move to agenda item 4, our 2024 regulatory fee payment update.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, and good afternoon, committee members. My name is Leonardo Fiwo, for Hire Vehicle Administration Manager, and agenda item number 4 will cover the 2024 regulatory fee payment update. As we did last year, all invoices were sent to the permit holder's email on file via email by January 1st of 2024. Right after, between January 2nd and the deadline, which was March 4th of 2024, for Hire Vehicle Administration collected the regulatory fee payments, the vehicle inspection forms, annual statements at the airport holding lot at the San Ysidro, Old Time Mesa, and CVX areas, and also via Dropbox at the for Hire Vehicle Administration lobby. I would like to thank the airport for allowing us to collect those payments at the holding lot. That was really, really helpful, and not only for us, but also for the drivers. It made it a very seamless and convenient process. Also, for those permit holders who were unable to submit their payments by the March 4th deadline, we did have an extended late payment period that lasted until March 29th of 2024, so long as the original regulatory fee was paid with an additional 100 late fee. And on that, for Hire Vehicle Administration received a total of 23 late fee payments, allowing permit holders to keep their permit. Also, for Hire Vehicle Administration provided a regulatory fee waiver to our 8 wheelchair accessible vehicles owned by USA Cab, CPS Transportation, Cool Cab, Patriot Transportation, AH, and MR Cab, guaranteeing at least 8 wheelchair accessible vehicles in our taxi fleet. This table shows the permits that were billed at the beginning of the year, and the number of permits that were paid and the number of voided permits with their respective percentages. We had a total of 72 taxi cab permits that were voided And also other numbers as far as other permits that we manage. 16 non-emergency medical permits, 1 low-speed vehicle that was not renewed from Imperial Beach, 1 jitney vehicle and 9 charters. You can see the percentage of the permits voided, that they're within 10% with the exception of the jitneys, but that's because we only had 3 jitney permits. The permit holders who couldn't make the payment but wish to retain their permits after the late March 29 deadline, they had to apply for a new permit. Fortunately, there weren't that many. Most permit holders that wanted to stay in business were able to pay by the late March 29 deadline. But if they wanted to remain in business, they would have to apply for a new permit. And also the current permit holders that wish to apply for a taxicab wheelchair accessible permit may request an application fee waiver to us by the end of the fiscal year. And then afterwards, depending on our budget analysis, or Hire Vehicle Administration may provide a regulatory fee waiver thereafter if the permit remains in good standing. Again, if you're interested, any permit holder that's interested in acquiring that vehicle, so long as wheelchair accessible, there are fee waivers for the application process and everything, all the other fees that are related. Please contact our office for more information. Question, comments on agenda item, Chair?
Thank you, Lenny. Sure. Do we have public comment on this item?
We do not have any public comments on this item.
All right. Any questions or comments from board members? All right. Hearing none. Lenny, thank you for the update. Appreciate it. And we will move to agenda item number 5.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item number 5, flat rate study for airport originated trips. On May 10th, we held an ad hoc meeting in this room with many members of the committee to present information that was compiled by for Hire Vehicle Administration from the following airports to understand how a taxicab rate is determined and implemented. On the screen, you can see a list of the airports that responded to our survey with information on how they implement a flat rate for taxicabs. During an ad hoc meeting, we presented individual results for the airports that are summarized in this presentation for the whole committee. But out of the respondents, we determined that the airports with no established flat rates are the following: Kinoa, YYC, International, they're from Canada. And of course, they have different rules up there, but they have no established flat rates. As far as national airports, Spokane, Washington, Orlando, Ontario, and John Wayne Airport here in California, they do not have any established meter rates, but they do allow taxicabs that operate within the airport to establish their own rates, in this case, by zip code or by city areas. We also found that some airports do have a flat rate that is established by zone in a combination of number of passengers. Nashville, Atlanta, and Tulsa, Oklahoma are examples of this combination of a flat rate. These cities have determined areas or zones within the city. For Nashville, Gaylord, Oberland, downtown, and the convention center being one of the main points of those trips within the distance. And also a rule where if an additional passenger more than one wants to join that trip, then it has a respective fee. In this case, $2 for additional passenger. Atlanta, the same. They have downtown, midtown, and Buckhead areas along with their respective distances. Also, coincidentally, with a $2 charge for each additional person. Tulsa, Oklahoma, the downtown Southern Hills Marriott in the University of Tulsa. And I guess there's like a big bus plant over there with their respective zone rates and an extra passenger fee for $2. Charlotte and Dallas-Fort Worth, similar, they established their areas along with a flat rate of up to a 3-mile radius. Dallas, same issue. They don't have individual areas, but they identified the business district, which is 20 miles away from the airport. And on these cases, those flat rates were higher to a certain percentage when compared to the meter rate. So the ranges for between 30%, 20 and 10%, depending on the mileage. The premise here is that the shorter the distance from the airport, the higher the flat rate would be when compared to the traditional meter rate. The longer it is, the lower the lowest increase to the flat rate and so forth. There were also airports that do not use a flat rate per se per zone. They utilize their meter rates, but they do allow for an extra fee whenever there's more than one passenger boarding. In this case, Savannah and Chicago are good examples. They only utilize their meter rates, but they do charge Savannah, in this case, $5 per additional person. Chicago, $1 for additional person. But they have a combination of high surcharges from the airport. So that's another flat rate approach that we discovered from the study. There are also airports that have a flat rate with a minimum amount based on distance. Miami, San Jose, and LAX, Los Angeles are examples of this. They do not necessarily identify areas, but they do have a minimum charge for airport originated trips that equate to that to a certain radius or a certain distance when compared to the meter rate. In this case, $15 in Miami would cover in this case, Miami, it would cover whatever the meter rate would be. But if you're going to downtown, it would, based on the meter rate, the distance is about $33. The minimum fare from downtown covers about 3.6 miles. In San Jose, up in the Bay Area, similar, it's a minimum of $15. That covers 1 mile approximately from San Jose. Reason is that most of the hotels are within that distance. And anything after that mile, then the traditional meter rate kicks in. So their meter needs to be programmed to be able to calculate that. In Los Angeles, they do have a minimum exit charge, you would say, of $16.50 for airport originated trips. That would take you approximately 5 miles out of the airport. Anything beyond that, the meter kicks in. Or if you want to travel from LAX to the downtown area, it's a $51, a little bit over $51. This was the only example in which the flat rate for downtown is less. And my counterpart from LA explained this, that they are due for a recalculation, but this was the only example in which, again, the flat rate is less than what it would be from a metered fare. In San Francisco was unique in terms of just only authorizing a metered fare, but beyond 15 miles, then the traditional meter fare would come in at an increase of 150%. Coincidentally, the San Francisco metro area is located beyond the 15-mile radius. So that was a unique example. In this case, in San Francisco, the downtown area is located, again, 16 miles, and the fare range could be, depending upon traffic, between $44, a little bit more than that, and $64 to $62. And also, the drivers may charge less than the meter rates, similar to what we allow here in San Diego. A unique example was Las Vegas, and I'm glad that we have a good visual here because they're a unique zone example on which the Las Vegas regulator and the taxicab industry were able to determine these areas. You can see McCarran Airport, well, it's no longer McCarran, it should say Harry Reid Airport, right next on the bottom right of the screenshot, the closest area being number 1 and 2 in the middle of the strip, and 3rd at the end of the strip. So the prices, depending on areas, $22, $26, and $30 flat rate. For zone 1, It's, and across all zones, zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3, it was a 30% higher flat rate when compared to the meter rate. Las Vegas does have a high flag drop. They also allow for a high first mile rate, initial first mile of $8.40, an additional mile of $3.15. The high first mile charge makes sense since the airport is really, it's close within a mile from the Vegas Strip. So that is the reasoning why the Vegas regulator allows for that first mile charge. As far as San Diego, the facts that we were able to gather from the airport, and thank you for providing that information. In 2023, TNCs provided close to 2 million trips versus 342,000 taxicab trips. That equates to over 400% trips of taxicabs. TNCs continue to dominate the ground transportation trips originating out of the airport. Also, TNCs provide flexible rates when compared to our taxicab meter rates. Neither TNCs or taxicabs charge by number of passengers. That is important. As we saw in some other airports, they do allow for that extra charge based on number of passengers. Here in San Diego, we currently neither TNCs or taxis contemplate that. Also, in 2020, the airport lifted the permit cap. There are currently 600, a little bit over 600 cabs, 602 to be precise, that are permitted to operate out of the San Diego airport. It is unknown how many TNCs operate out of the airport. That information is will not be provided by the TNC companies. Also, taxi cabs may work any day of the week by logging onto the gatekeeper virtual queue. The airport may split the permits in the future, as they did prior to the cap being lifted. And also recently, based on airport data, the airport reported that 413 cabs elected to take an airport dispatch trip and completed 758 trips on that day. That averaged 1.84 dispatches per cab for the day. In other words, trips, which corroborate driver information that on some days, the average trips that they're able to provide is either between 1 or 2 or maybe 3. So in this case, rounding it up to 2. Also, I would like to thank Yellow Cab for providing us with this important data as far as the airport originated trips between January 1st and May 8th. There were 15,857 trips out of the airport. The following statistic is very important due to the fact that it establishes a baseline as far as the average taxi cab trip, which originating out of the airport is 7.9 miles. Trip time, a little bit over 18 minutes, and the average fare. As far as for non-airport trips, also within that same time range, there were obviously more trips within the city, but the average trip miles, or the average trip distance, I should say, is consistent with the average trip distance for airport originated trips at almost a little bit over 7 miles, almost 7.5 miles. This table shows the popular destinations out of the airport, the convention center, the zoo, the Pacific Beach, La Jolla, and Coronado, along with the distance from the airport and in the current rate calculated based on the maximum rates. The hotel circle area and rates are highlighted because they are the closest in terms of distance to the average trips out of the airport and out of and in the city based on the data provided by Yellow Cab. So we could say that based on those statistics, the average trip to consider would be 7.5 miles. A summary of findings from our study and from the ad hoc meeting is that airport flat rates are implemented by the following methods, and they may and may not include any airport surcharges. By distance, it's a determined flat rate within a distance range, within or up to 5 miles. And then the regular rates would apply thereafter. By zone, determined by city areas, similar to Las Vegas, the example that we saw a minute ago, and also in other cities such as Atlanta. Or a combination of base rates by zone, by distance, plus number of passengers. with the exception of San Francisco, which contemplates a flat, well, not even a flat rate, but utilizes, I should say, meter rates up to a certain distance, 15 miles, and then charge the regular rate at a higher rate, in this case, 150% of their meter rates. I apologize for that. Seems to be frozen. There you go. Sorry about that. Continuing with the summary of findings. The airport flat rates are generally higher when compared with meter rates based on distance. Flat rates set by zones or city areas are higher than base rates the shorter the distance with the airport. The rate gradually decreases as the distance increases. Some airports and some cities allow taxi cabs to charge per additional passengers in lieu of or on top in addition of a flat rate. The longer the distance between the airport and the downtown area or business district, the closer a flat rate is to the metered rate. Some flat rates cover an additional short distance radius, like Los Angeles, and the taximeter calculates meter rates beyond that established flat rate distance boundary. Some taxicab companies offer flat rates based on zip codes, so long as they are within the maximum rates of fare established by the local regulator, such as the case of the John Wayne Airport. And finally, regulated airport flat rates were devised, and this is very important. All of them were devised in cooperation with the taxicab industry. So this was not a unilateral approach either by the city or the regulator or the airport. The taxicab industry was in close cooperation with those entities when developing a flat rate. For possible proposals moving forward, we could contemplate a flat rate by destination or by distance with or city zones or zip codes in San Diego. The downtown Gaslamp, Hotel Circle, and Mission Valley zone areas could be some examples. We could consult with every stakeholder on the proposed boundaries for those areas. And then determine if the meter rate if a meter rate would apply beyond that zone boundary. And also determine how much higher percentage-wise that flat rate would be when compared to the maximum rates. Another possible proposal could be to determine a minimum rate. We can call it an airport exit fee, also similar to what Los Angeles has, up to a certain mileage. In this case, maybe $15 for the first or up to 2 miles. Meter rates would apply thereafter. We could also authorize an extra charge per passenger or a combination of extra passenger charges and a flat rate per zone or distance, or a combination of all these methods. This is not recommended since in San Diego historically, an extra charge per passenger has never been utilized. And finally, we could determine a flat rate based on the average trip length, which in this case, it's safe to say that it's 7.5 miles, and use that mileage distance as a baseline, also considering that San Diego maximum rates are the highest as we base them on changes to the consumer price index. The next steps would be for Hire Vehicle Administration to develop an online survey to gather feedback on a possible flat rate. We may work with United Taxi Workers San Diego and the UCSD Engineering Lab for assisting on developing the survey. We would also inquire with the airport about possible changes to the current $2.98 surcharge. That's a factor that was brought up at the ad hoc meeting, as depending on what a flat rate would be, the group should also consider what surcharges the airport will be charging. And finally, for Hire Vehicle Administration, we'll present the survey results once the survey is established and gathered at a future TAC meeting. That concludes the presentation, Chair, and I'm open for any questions or comments.
Thank you for the presentation, Lenny. Do we have public comment on this item?
We do have public comments on this item. Okay, so our first public comment from Johannes Hagos.
Yeah, my name is Johannes Hagos. My address 1547 Manzana Way. I am cab driver. Since 1994, I am the cab driver. Now, my regarding the airport sticker to split A and B, this, as I'm not supported. You know, we work in the taxi 30 years, 30 days, all my airport sticker. Now you put the A and B, some drivers with two taxi driving, and then all the drivers, another buy the car and then buy the insurance, all the processing is not fair. We have 4 sticker before open it. Now we left to have 1 taxi. Now again, everybody open market. Now again, put 2 taxi, he driving to airport. AB, if he driving 2 taxi, B, driving 2 taxi, 1 person, you have to own 4 cab. You pay 350 insurance. That means 1,200 to pay insurance. And then you buy the car. This is not fair. Please stop. It's going good with 1 driver, 1 sticker, 30 days, we good. If you split, big problem with the drivers. I'm done.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Mr. Andai.
My name is Andai Oba Gabriel. Just on I can talk like same like you wanted to say that I can support that. I don't support to split the sticker. Just to I like to continue the same like the way they are going. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comments on that item.
All right, thank you. Thank you again, Lenny, for all the work that went into this. This has been a topic of conversation for a while here on the board. We'll take questions and comments. We'll begin with Mr. Banks.
Anyway, the two speakers, they're talking about the airport. We are in the MTS, so I think the airport is not intention to split for the time being, but the two speakers, they just talk about airport, not concerning the MTS. That's what to say, because MTS is airport is the one that split the sticker, but not MTS. So airport is not ready to split for the time being. So that's what I want to say.
All right, thank you, Mr. Banks. Mr. Taysom?
Yeah, I have a question for the airport manager here who's here today. Why did they go from split to full access for everyone? There's someone from the airport here?
So staff received from the board direction to open the taxi system. There was a lot of debate in having a secondary market, buying, airport permits. And it was thought that that wasn't in the interest of the drivers or the public. And so the board gave staff the direction to open the taxi system up to anybody that wants to drive a taxi at the airport that are permitted with MTS. They're allowed to apply for a permit and operate.
That's not the question I asked, sir. I asked, why did you split the A, B back to full, the whole? Or you went from A, B, C, D to, I'm sorry,
Sure.
A1, A, B2 to all.
So
What was the purpose for doing that?
the airport had a closed system, so we had a known number of vehicles that would operate. And we were able to, with a known number of vehicles, we were able to create an A-B system based on traffic. But when we open up the system, we don't know how many drivers will elect in a particular period to permit with the airport, so that number can go up and down. And we don't know where that would go.
No, but why did you do that? Why did you take the A and B permits, put them together, made them all one sticker for all access. My question is
Right.
because now we're in a cluster, we're in the cluster of
Mhm.
cabs there at all times. And I blame the airport for doing this. The airport
So,
took the A and B.
hold on, I want to make sure we keep the conversation focused on.
Yeah.
On the zones. Maybe I'm not understanding something, but this feels like it's more of a question about the specific, a very specific component of pickup and drop off for airports rather than what we're discussing right now.
Right, but
which is-
here's where it comes back to. If the airport had not done this, had kept the splits, we wouldn't be commenting about doing flat rates, because we would have enough business there at the airport for drivers to repeatedly go back in and out, in and out, in and out type thing. And right now, we're pushing 400 cabs a day per hour in the VQ system they have, up to 400 cabs an hour, up to 400 cabs an hour. And sometimes they made it go from 3 hours to 7 hours just to get one ride out of the airport. This is why people are complaining now, the drivers are, because the drivers cannot run on airport only.
Right.
And they're thinking that they could have. So my question is, why did the airport do the split and consolidate all those permits to all when they should have kept them split originally? That's my question. That's what comes down to this comment.
Understood. Mr. Anderson, and
I'm
then we'll go to
sure.
Mr. Banks.
So, it was a legacy system that we had, which was A, B, and all. And we had a known set of operators that were allowed to operate the airport. When the board gave direction staff to open up the system,
Right.
we no longer knew that. So it was, if you want to operate, you just can't, you can operate anytime you want. You're issued that type of permit. You're not restricted to the old system, which there was an A, B, and all permit. And it's because we do not have a known number to do that. It's an open system. So
Got it. And
I hope that clears
Chris-
things up.
Thank you. Mr. Banks?
And when the UTW ask MTS to open for all, then they go to the airport, want airport, any MTS permit can allow to open the airport. It's the same time. It wasn't, what airport plan. UTW said, go to the MTS, open for all. Then they go to airport, open all the MTS permit to come to the airport. That's why they make those changes. That's why they take off A and all, make everything all, the non-A and B, they take it off, everybody all. So that's why they changed it. It wasn't MTS.
I didn't say it was empty.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hold on. Just want to make sure. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? And then,
Please make sure you guys lean into the mic and make sure it's on. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for the study. It was a good study. I hope we're going to continue with the ad hoc group with the flat rate. And the next question is for sure for Mike Anderson. Thank you. You did respond to my email. And we had a heated agreement. I mean, we were debating about this issue even an hour ago at the holding lot. This is a very sensitive issue right now. And a lot of drivers are concerned what the airport would do in the future if they're gonna keep things the way it is, or are they gonna split? So we want to see how the operation gonna look like in the future. So I know Mr. Banks did respond, but we see a lot of people coming from the holding lot. I want them to hear directly from you, how things gonna look like in the future, even if the airport gonna split the stickers, how this thing's gonna proceed. Is there gonna be a meeting? Is there gonna be a discussion with the stakeholders? Like, give them a brief thing so they're gonna hear it directly from you. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
So the airport has no direction to go back to the old system, A, B, C. We have the direction to have a open permit system. If you want to permit with the airport, you can do so, and you can work whenever you want. And we have no direction to limit that and to go forward. So I did see that in the presentation. We may do that in the future. There's no direction for us to do that. Is that clear? Is that what clear to you, Abel? Okay.
Microphone.
Yeah, folks,
Next year, we're not gonna expect,
No.
things will be, all
No.
stakeholder operation will be the same, right?
All, that's the expectation. It'll be all, no changes
In the next
No.
year, but if
Yeah.
they have to do it in the future, then are we, I guess, gonna, up for discussion? Is it gonna, the stakeholder will be discussed?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. That's a big change.
Okay.
And it's completely against the direction from our board to go there. You're told to open the system up, and that's being restricted.
Okay, you're
we-
not
we-
gonna just
Right.
say, you're not gonna
Yeah.
tell, hey, you're gonna
And-
work only 2 days a week or 3 days without
Right.
talking
And-
to us.
Right, and we have the electronic dispatch system, so, you're not required to be at the airport. You can, enter your vehicle into the queue, and you could continue to work in other locations that are busy. And when it's time to come to the airport, our system will dispatch you and let you know you're ready to, to do a pickup.
That's gonna satisfy my answer, and I'm happy for that. Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Taysom, you have another comment? And then if there's no additional comments after that, we'll go to Margot after Mr. Taysom.
Go ahead, Margot, she's first.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Margot.
Yeah, I'm the senior airport driver. I haven't worked it for a number of years right now, and right now I'm not even working because of the injury. Yellow Cab was kicked out of the airport for too many accidents many years ago. I was driving yellow. I was asked to kindly go work the airport with all those independent drivers. This was 1979. We have gone through allowing Yellow Cab back into the airport. We've gone through going into odd even with Bill Hilton, dangerously driving outside the port district the day the port voted for the odd even, and he was very upset over that. We've gone through all these changes. These need to be discussed as is. The issue here is the flat rate. For all these years, when I was driving, we were not allowed to charge less than the meter. Most of the guys did. People come up to the cab and say how much, and they'd, but if they got caught, they got in a lot of trouble. And I got in a little bit of trouble over one comment, but the enforcement for the cabs has always been a problem. I think the flat rate situation is probably way overdue in time. And I know a lot of the guys say no, but the other part of it is, I have heard one of my friends, the competition was going to charge $56 to go downtown, so she decided to take a taxi. And her husband was a retired taxi driver, but she was going to use the other group. And there's been these issues. Now, most of the time they charge less. This has been the big problem. And if you take a look at the numbers of what our cabs are picking up at the airport, we need to do everything possible to up the number of trips of the guys working guys and gals working the airport. That's the main issue here. I lived on the airport income for many, many years. And when we went to odd even, I supplemented with SeaWorld, the zoo, and the hotels. And I had already worked those. I knew the way around the city. We're now into a new system here with the flat rating, and I understand that. But this needs to be discussed. And at least if the person comes up to your cab and says how much, and ooh, that's a little too much, I'll say, how about flat rating it to X dollars, let's say $50 to go up north a little bit. And instead of $70 on the meter, and the person says, fine, that time has come. It's been here for many, many years. And we need to really take a look at what we can do about that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we've got Mr. Taysom, Mr. Banks, and we'll wrap it up. Mr. Taysom, Mr. Banks, Mr. Majid, is there anybody else who'd like to speak? 'Cause I want to make sure we can get through the full agenda. Okay.
No, go ahead, Mr. Banks, please. Microphone. Yeah, it is.
Oh. Regarding the flat rate, that would be problematic for San Diego, because most people used to go to downtown, go here, the amount. In the flat rate, how we going to do the meter? They're going to have a different button to press for different flat rate or just one flat rate? If it's say $25, so whenever you put the meter on, it's going to say $25 all the time? Because the flat rate is not good in San Diego. You're going to make a lot of things complicating. Because right now, the customer can come to you, ask how much from point A to point B. You can be able to tell them how much, because you go by the meter. You can only tell them how many miles. You calculate by, for the whatever, then you give them plus minus. But if you have a flat rate, that would be additional to the meter change before their destination. The flat rate in San Diego, it will be a very problematic. It's going to be coming a lot of argument. The customer will be complaining to the airport, somebody overcharged them. Because for the past years, they've been going to this place for this amount, or they charge them more. So I think my own, that we just got to take flat rate out of the picture. That's my own regarding the flat rate. It's not good for San Diego.
All right, thank you, Mr. Banks. All good, Mr. Majid? Next,
Thank you, Mr.
and then
Chair.
Mr. Abraham, and then we are going to move on after Mr. Abraham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Lenny, thank you very much for putting together that comprehensive report. As the data already shows, we have priced ourselves out of the market at the airport. Data clearly backs that up. And I'm assuming by implementing a flat rate to certain areas, we're even charging more than the allowable rates. I'm assuming that's the direction that we're going. The fact that we are charging the highest rate anywhere in the country. We have the highest taxicab rates of fare anywhere in the country. On top of that, we want to charge even more. If you're complaining about getting 1.8 trips per day now, it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. And a lot of the airports that do have flat rates that are higher, they're actually right now we're behind the eight ball. These flat rates with the other airports have been in place for many, many years. Now they're trying to get creative and come up with something else and get out of these high rates because they're not able to compete with TNCs as the data backs it up clearly. In my opinion, also, what you have compared here are some very sophisticated airports. And those airports cannot be, by leaps and bounds, cannot be compared to San Diego airports. They're a lot more sophisticated. If I'm not saying to do it, I'm not saying not to do it, my recommendation would be not to upcharge anymore because we have already priced ourselves out of the market. Having said that, if we are going to implement a flat rate, as Alfred said, the number of complaints are going to go through the roof. If we're going into that direction, we also have to think about what's happening at the terminals. We have to have some staffing there to communicate with passengers saying, from here to here, we have this flat rate, and hand them a piece of paper so there's no friction between the driver and the consumer. I'm not going to ramble on anymore, but we are pricing ourselves out of the market. I said this last time when the CPI came up and we jacked up our prices, and we see the results. And if the intention of the flat rates are to increase even further, believe it or not, that 1.8 ratio will go to below 1.
Thank you. Majid, Mr. Abraham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we are here sitting, talking about the advisory committee, this happened when the business was bad years ago, when Barbara Lopra was here. Then when we started this business, it was chaos like this. Then when they changed, the amount of cabs, the administration was protecting our assets. That's why it starts from zero to thousands of dollars. Then when this business was going up, when Uber came over, then the business, there is no MTS or airport can do anything. They just pass the law and they destroy the business. It doesn't matter, we sit here day and night There is nothing on the street. I am there. So I don't care who discuss here, who is going to do anything. Airport, they have taxis there. If the cab is sitting 4 or 5 hours, Uber are flying. What can you do? Airport, they let them go to work. The MTS let them any taxi to come and apply. So there is nothing he can help the taxi industry to do any business or to achieve goals or make money. I don't think so there is anything because there is dominant Uber.
Yeah.
When you make expensive, who's gonna get in your cab?
Understood.
So we can discuss here, there is nothing, I don't think so we can say, oh, we do this, but we can't decide anything. We just, the airport gives a medallion, if you work, work. The MTS, the same thing. But if you work like me, then you can see, what do? You have to do your own business to create business. That's all. Unless there is nothing it can solve our problem. I wish we have, but it's been since they opened the medallion airport, the people there were complaining, oh, we don't have medallions, we have medallions. Now they are complaining we don't need more. So if you're going to change this one, you have to limit the amount of medallions at the airport, at the city. Then the value of the medallions will be protected by the airport and the city. Then we have a value. Then we can have anything we can do. But now we can spend our time here. I don't think so we can make any change on the street. Maybe we can talk nice, whatever we do here, but it's different on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. I really want to get through the agenda, folks. Ms. Tango, I'm gonna let you go, and then we got it. We got to get moving.
Okay, can I?
Yes.
The origins of the flat rate were if the person walked up to the cab at the airport, goes back to the lease program that when you had company drivers, you could only charge you could charge what's on the meter, and you turned your money into whoever, Yellow Cab or whatever the company, and they paid you a paycheck over it. When we went to leasing, the lease program signed by President Carter allowed you to charge less than the meter. You could not charge more, but you could flat rate. Now, we've got different versions of flat rate here. What about when the person walks up at the airport and says, how much to La Costa? And you say what the meter is, and he says, that's too much. Can you charge less? $50? That sounds good. I'll take you. In the olden days, we would get a ticket because we had to charge the meter. Can we have a discussion of flat rating for less than the meter? I don't want to charge $20 to go downtown. That's the problem. That's what I was just saying. The lady took a cab because Uber was going to charge $26. There's two versions of flat rate. A lot of the stuff is you're charging more for no, we don't want to do that. That would put us totally out of business. We want to charge, if person only has $10 and it's a $15 trip, we'll take the $10 and go. If we don't, the next driver will be asked. We need to define what we're talking about for flat rate here and make it legal with the airport, because up to this point, technically, we haven't been legal. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. Rich discussion. Lenny, appreciate all the work. And I appreciate the ad hoc committee coming together and discussing these things. Obviously, if there's one thing that I've learned in my time being on this committee, it's that the taxi industry is not a monolith, and there are a lot of different opinions and ideas for how to proceed and how to make this an industry that can work for folks again. Let's move to agenda item 6. Lenny, take it away.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda number 6, recommendations on taximeter regulations for the MTS legislative agenda. And similar to the flat rate ad hoc meeting, MTS Fire Vehicle Administration held a similar ad hoc meeting to discuss the taximeter regulations. So as a background, at the last Taxicab Advisory Committee meeting of February 21st, the members raised questions about the disparities between how the Department of Weights and Measures, Department of Agriculture Weights and Measures verifies taximeters versus a TNC app meter. Our Taxicab Advisory Committee representatives stated that any disparities are codified in state law, and therefore this issue had to be addressed at the state level. As TNCs are regulated at the state level, the taxicab industry recognizes that it is unlikely that TNCs will be held to the same metering standards as taxicabs. For-hire Vehicle Administration convened an ad hoc group to discuss recommendations to reduce these disparities that may be included in the MTS legislative agenda. And for that, and For-hire Vehicle Administration identified the applicable codes that have to do with taximeter registration and taximeter regulations at the state level, California Government Code, Business and Profession Codes, and a couple of them. I invite the committee members to read them in more detail in interest and time. But basically, these codes just cover the requirement for the state to oversee the taximeter registration and certification process, as the taximeter is a measuring device. Additional applicable codes have to do with another business and profession code. This one in particular, business and profession codes 12-40, that mandates and authorizes at the county level by ordinance that a county may charge annual registration fees. And we'll get back to that as we go forward with this agenda item. And finally, a couple of code of regulations also at the state level. And these have to do with the inspection frequencies for all metering devices, in particular taximeters. Requirements for taximeters, they do require to be registered annually and pay the following fees to the County of San Diego Weights and Measures. These are the current fees. Additionally, the certification as far as the pricing or the costs, I should say, part of the certification requires that all fare information is posted inside taxicabs, that the time and testing computations are correct, that the distance measuring is correct, and then any extras are displayed and correct also. Lead and wire security seals are still a requirement, and that inspections are conducted on a certified 1-mile course. Now, these requirements that I just mentioned, as far as the cost and the certification requirements, apply for both hard and soft taximeters. By taxicab hard meters, we're referring to the old Centrodynes that are directly connected to the vehicle's transmission. A lot of factors have to go into that as far as vehicle gear ratio and tire size. And soft meters are not necessarily connected or operate in the same way a hard meter does. It could be based on GPS coordinates. We learned that TNC-based app metering is handled at the state level with no county involvement. So we went into this ad hoc meeting with the premise that counties and their weights and measures departments were also responsible for somehow verifying the TNC meters, and that was not the case. TNC charges drivers platform or service fees to help maintain business. So we also discovered that although TNC drivers are not required to pay any fees or any costs related to the certification of that app metering, TNCs do charge their drivers what they called service platform or service fees. Then they may in turn pass on to the state of California in order to sustain their pricing approach. There is no need for a TNC driver to register anything with the county sealer, unlike taxi drivers. There's no need to pay fees directly to the county, as I mentioned. No need for a TNC driver's smartphone, tablet, or other device to be sealed or registered. That's an important fact to be discussed. No subject, TNC drivers are not subject to maximum rates or fares or adjustment. They utilize what it's called dynamic pricing. So again, the TNC industry does not have set fares. They utilize dynamic pricing, maybe up or down, fluctuates, hence the term dynamic based on consumer demand. It's not considered their TNC app. It's not considered a measurement instrument, but rather a pricing platform. There's no associated rate postings, placements, or device or other app-based meter requirements inside the vehicle. Again, local weights and measures departments do not investigate overcharge complaints because it's a pricing platform, not a device that is considered to be a measuring device. Finally, TNCs internally investigate disputes. In this case, if they don't come to a favorable resolution with the passenger may report that to the State Department of Consumer Affairs or their local district attorney office. We had a rich discussion. Many of the members of the ad hoc of this committee were part of the ad hoc committee. And we came up with the following proposed changes to the regulations. First, create a general exemption for taximeters for both hard and soft meters from any approval or any certification requirements that are set forth on those codes that I mentioned initially, both the government code and the business and profession codes. If this were to be adopted, drivers could utilize any metering device or metering software product in the market. There are many out there that you can download. However, the accuracy of those software products is not certified by any agency. As there would be no agency certification of taximeters, a passenger would report possible fraud or overcharges to the local regulatory agency, in this case MTS, or to a law enforcement agency. Cons for this possible recommendation include that without oversight from a public agency, non-certified taximeters would be susceptible to fraud and tampering. There was a proposal for some dispatch services that could conduct internal verification of their subscribers' taximeter software for accuracy. Again, it varies. In a dispatch service, it would, it's not a public agency. They wouldn't necessarily have the expertise, and this would be a very informal oversight process. Another recommendation that we discussed was to remove the inspection requirement and therefore the associated fees, excuse me, that are set forth on the code of regulations that I mentioned that authorizes counties to charge fees and a cost recovery basis. In this case, drivers would need to utilize an approved device by the county, but they would, or the state of California, I should say, not the county. But drivers would rely on an authorized service agent to adjust, maintain, and certify taximeters. An authorized service agent is a person who has undergone training and testing with the state of California to be able to work on taximeters. Mr. Taysom is an authorized service agent. And I believe there's a couple of other persons within San Diego County that are authorized. Authorized service agents may charge a variable non-regulated fee to provide service. So even if the county did not charge for the registration process, the service agents, unless they want to do it for free, they would have a service charge that's not regulated in that it's up to their discretion. The final two proposals are to create a specific exception for soft meters from the inspection requirement, and therefore, again, the associated fees set forth on that code that authorizes the county to charge on a cost recovery basis. In this case, soft meter software would be audited and may be audited and verified digitally without the need to verify individual devices installed at taxicabs. As of now, the state codes do mandate that every device, independent of it being a soft meter or hard meter, to be certified by weights and measures. In this case, they wouldn't go that route. They would only certify the software. Dispatch services that utilize soft meter technology would be the point of contact with weights and measures. And it would remove the requirement for each device to be certified. And the final recommendation is to revise business and profession codes 12 to 40 to exempt taximeters from any annual registration fees. The drivers would still be subject to all certification requirements. And it is unknown if this proposal may be discussed at the county level to provide cost relief. Again, this code only authorizes counties to charge whatever amounts they determine on a cost recovery basis for that certification process. The next steps, we will conduct internal discussions on the feasibility of the discussed proposals and reach out to county weights and measures for additional feedback. For hire vehicle administration, we'll provide a report to the Taxicab Advisory Committee on any recommended proposals and possible inclusions to the legislative agenda item. And finally, Chair, I would like to thank our advisory committee representative, Mr. Garcia and Mr. Austin for being present at the ad hoc meeting and working with us to clarify what this process would look like. That being said, I'm open to any questions or comments.
Thank you, Lenny. Do we have public comment on this item?
We don't have any public comments on this item.
All right. Do we have board member questions or comments?
Lenny, do you have to be a certified agent even to update the soft meter? I mean, is there any requirement to upgrade, change anything from the county to do any kind of change? You know, we have so those tablets, and if there is an issue with a driver, and if there is something happens, do you require the person who's you know, changing the things on the soft meter, they has to go to the training or what do you call that, requirement, what do you call this, just the certification process? Is there something that they have to go through in order to manage the soft meters, or is it just, it goes through the radio companies, they have their own agent, and you guys don't require a certification on that process?
Thank you. I'll answer your question to the extent of my historical knowledge. So historically, again, for card meters, anybody that manipulates or that works on or that repairs a meter device needs to be a certified service agent. Due to the changes in technology, and I'll defer the question to Jonathan, due to the changes in technology, manipulating or changing rates on soft meters, it can be done remotely from a computer within a dispatch service or wherever that centralized control is at. So if the extent of just changing those rates through software, I'm not able to answer that, but maybe Jonathan, can you give us a little bit more insight?
Yeah, so I'm Jonathan, I'm with Weights and Measures. If there is any kind of, if like, let's say you updated the software, that should be placed in service by either a service agent or inspected by us, one of our inspectors with Weights and Measures. If it's just a price update, it's not affecting anything that's metrological and affecting what how the GPS works or however the system is computing the mile, then that wouldn't need to be placed in service. Is that?
I had some, I know you saw flywheel on some cabs, and some drivers, they have issues with you know, the GPS and with the updates and everything, and you know, with the dispatch company, sometimes they're not here. So if something happens with the soft meter, do we have to contact the person there, and then they have to come down here to make the changes, or can we do it over the phone? Or do you require that person, whoever engaging with those tablets, has to be certified, or have to go through some kind of training? You know, I just want to, we don't have that big of problem. If it happens, what would be the certain path to do this? That's my question.
So if they're making changes to the software, that is most likely updating the software number, which would correlate to the metrological device that would be certified by the state. It would have a certificate of conformance, so that could be changing that. That would have to be tested again to ensure it's accurate. So if they are making changes to the software, they should be being tested to ensure that it's still accurate. I don't know if.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia and Mr. Majid. I don't see any other requests to ask, to speak or ask questions here. Lenny, thank you for the work on this. Please keep us in the loop in my office. If there's opportunities for us to support some of the legislative work that's being done, and to potentially incorporate into the MTS state legislative agenda as well. Sneeze, sorry. All right, we're good. With that, we will go ahead and wrap up the discussion of item 6 and move to item 7.
Thank you, Chair. Item 7 for Hire Vehicle Administration Operations Update. We present the operation update at every Taxicab Advisory Committee meeting, and I would like to take the time to emphasize the importance of this first slide pertaining to this agenda item, that email is a primary method of communication for all purposes and all business purposes with for hire vehicle administration. It is the responsibility of the permit holders to check the spam, the junk folders, and adjust the email filters to accept for hire vehicle administration emails coming obviously from as the MTS domain. We cannot emphasize this, the importance of this requirement, as many permit holders, and there's many changes as we can see in the industry, and with so many companies, so many drivers, we do want to make sure that everybody is kept in the loop and up to speed with these changes. And the only way to, aside of these meetings, these quarterly meetings, the best and most practical way to accomplish this is through emails. However, we do get constant concerns that the emails, were not received and that the emails were not sent. So we do have a database with all permit holders' email information. Again, emphasizing for permit holders to keep an eye out for all of our communications. Per ordinance section, our ordinance does cover the requirement for permit holders to notify for hire vehicle administration of any changes in their address, their phone numbers, or email information. Again, this is important, as when we follow up, and this is a time-consuming process, following up with individual permit holders as far as the reasons or the reasons why that email was not received, only to find out that the email was changed. So again, it is very important. It's a very simple, straightforward process. Our contact information is listed here at the table. So please, as soon as your business address, your email address, and your phone number, if there's any changes to that, give us a notification, please send us an email. There's no fees involved, but it's very important. It's vital, I should say. That way we can update our database and come around the end of the year, be able to send you the invoices and all other related information. Also, our staff is available by appointment only. All calls or emails are returned by the next business day. Our staff, there was a reduction in staff. Many of our permit holders, legacy permit holders, they do mention when our staff was bigger, there were many changes that came about. So we're trying to do our best to communicate and maintain that efficiency. And we do ask for the patience of everybody that does leave an email, that does send an email or leave a voice message. And also, when you're more than welcome to show up to our office. However, there are times that our staff is just not able to meet with you. In those cases, we advise for make an appointment, and then we'll accommodate your request. Our contact information is there with our phone numbers and our email contacts. We want to provide an update for the wildcatting issue that was brought up at the last Taxicab Advisory Committee meeting. Ever since that happened, we conducted meetings with some stakeholders, but before that, I would just like to provide the group with the definition of what is wildcatting. Most of the group is familiar with this issue, particularly in those areas. But wildcatting is they're just persons that make their living in those areas, San Ysidro and Otay Mesa, in the border area, by providing unlicensed and unregulated transportation services, utilizing unlicensed vehicles in exchange for compensation. What are those areas? The border areas, and particularly in the points of entry at the 700 block of East San Ysidro Boulevard in San Ysidro, City of San Diego, the 400 block of Virginia Avenue, also in San Ysidro and City of San Diego, and increasingly in Roll Drive and Via de la Amistad at Otay Mesa, which is also in the proper limits of the City of San Diego. On April 9th, we requested a meeting with the San Diego District Attorney to get guidance and to bring them up to speed on the problem that we're facing in those areas. The representatives from San Diego City Council District 8 and 9, MTS, San Diego Police, the California Public Utilities Commission, and the district attorney, we met at their office to discuss the following objectives: to bring awareness of what the problem, of what the activity on those areas, and also for the CPUC, which is the state agency that has a transportation enforcement branch. So they do have the ability and the authority to address this problem. Representatives of the PUC were present. We discussed the activity on those areas. We established the limitations that MTS and our code compliance and regulatory inspectors have when dealing with this particular problem. We outline each agency's responsibilities, the willingness and the resources to develop an action plan addressing wildcatting, and most importantly, to seek guidance from the district attorney on the best course of action. Any enforcement efforts could be in vain if the district attorney doesn't file or decide to prosecute on the enforcement action. And also to determine the need for continuous agency coordination in future meetings and a report method for all stakeholders. The next steps out of that meeting is that MTS Marketing is currently developing assigned content and a public safety awareness. San Diego Police and the San Diego District Attorney requested, given the nature of the problem and their experience, for a joint effort to conduct a public safety campaign to advise the public of the dangers of riding with unlicensed carriers, in this case wildcatters, and to place signage and determine where to place signage in those areas that contains a message still to be determined related to this public safety awareness campaign, and warning the consequences and fines or codes that are being violated for this activity. For Highway Vehicle Administration, MTS Marketing, and San Diego PD will conduct a future site visit to the San Isidro and Otay Mesa area to determine the best location for sign placements. Today, I received confirmation from Customs and Border Protection's representatives that they are willing to accommodate the signage at the exit areas of the points of entry. That way, but the majority of prospective passengers for wildcatting come out of those points of entry, and that way they can have a first-hand glimpse of this public safety campaign. So those are the next steps, and we will report back to the committee on any developments at the next meeting. This is our current active and surrender permits. So although we did lose about 70 permits in the last billing cycle, we are up to speed as to 800 taxicab permits that has since applied since January 1st. Out of those, there's 100 even that remain out of service. However, they're in good standing. They are just not operating for various reasons. And the percentages are rather low compared to last year in terms of permits that are not being operating. And overall, accounting for all the types of permits that for Highway Vehicle Administration regulates, it's 7.5 that remain under surrender, majority of which are taxicab permits. When a permit holder decides to come back to work, all they need to do is schedule an inspection with us, give us a call, schedule an inspection, provide insurance information, and at no cost, we will affix the operating medallion, and a permit holder can be back in business by the following day. Field contacts, we did add the city of Oceanside to the cities that we regulate. So our inspectors' area of jurisdiction and work area, I should say, expanded considerably. And for the quarterly contacts, a total of over 1,273 to be exact, with the sites, parkings, and warnings respectively. The majority of our contacts are NEMs, 59% of the total vehicle contacts, and followed closely by taxicabs. We like to issue warnings whenever possible for In this case, is to give the opportunity to the driver to come into compliance. And of the warnings that were issued, a total 7 of them, drivers were not displaying their sheriff ID. They did not have an operating permit. Majority of these cases, new non-emergency medical companies that do not know that they need an operating permit from us. And the other warnings, many times, these fleets are large in numbers, and their fleet management forgets to update their registration cards. However, they are duly registered, they just don't have them there in the vehicle, for which we issue a warning. In our customer feedback cases, a comparison from the last quarter, the only graph that we'd like to see go up is the complement one. All the other ones, that's the third from the right. However, we do continue to receive complaints of driver route behavior, particularly drivers that complain at the airport and make verbal comments to our passengers that they have been waiting there for 2 hours only for a short ride. In summary, our passengers would communicate to us that they're tired from a trip, that they're really not concerned with that, and that they find it extremely unprofessional and rude for drivers to express those grievances to a passenger. We do meet with those drivers, we follow up, we advise and we encourage all drivers to refrain from making those comments to a passenger. The taxicab service and the taxicab industry is a service industry, and similarly to other service industry like the restaurants or hotels, patrons expect the highest level of professionalism. So we encourage, again, taxi drivers to refrain from making those comments and to join our meetings and to join an ad hoc meetings and contact us. That way we can examine those grievances and concerns and handle them appropriately. And for the airport trips, for the first 3 months of first quarter, similar to last year, TNCs continue to provide the majority of grant transportation trips at a significant higher rate. As I mentioned, it has not changed from the last year. The trend seems to continue. And that, Chair, concludes our operations update. I'm open to any questions or.
Thank you. Do we have public comment on this item?
We do have public comments. Our first public comment is from Laura Herrera.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Laura Herrera. Tengo como 18 años de taxista. Siempre he trabajado en Outside Border. Allá el problema con los raiteros es demasiado grande, muy grande.
So my name is Laura Rivera. I've been working for 18 years as a taxi cab driver. I work mainly down in Otay, and the problem with wildcatters has been an issue since the beginning.
Ya vine de la anterior junta y si realmente no nos ayudan con esto, el problema en Otay, los taxis van a desaparecer en Otay. O sea, los raiteros tienen más gente para ellos que nosotros, porque ellos gritan, pelean con nosotros, son personas que no traen licencia, no traen aseguranza, no traen placas, vienen con placas de México, no, y realmente no nos han ayudado en nada.
So since the last meeting when I spoke on this issue, the issue has not changed. Wildcatters continue to be down at Otay. They are larger in number. They continue to yell, to fight. There are issues that they don't have valid licenses. They have Mexican license plates, and they feel that they have not received any help.
Yo propongo que nos ayuden con lo primero para empezar, un letrero, que digan que es ilegal eso, porque ahí no pasa nada mientras no pongan algún letrero. Gracias.
That she proposes that they put up signs that says that wildcatting is illegal, and that she thinks that that might solve the issue.
Gracias.
Thank you. Okay, our next public comment from Jose Mejia. Okay, he decided against. Adán Carrillo,
Buenas tardes. Yo también vengo representando, tengo 32 años de taxi, 32 años en el taxi y trabajo en Otay también. Y allí hay una persona que comanda a los raiteros con apodado el 4 y que les cobra $3 cada viaje que salen con su gente. ¿Cómo es posible que las autoridades no vean eso? Que una sola persona controle 50 raiteros y nosotros nomás mirando, nomás ahí, que ellos se lleven la gente.
so he's been a taxi driver for 32 years. He says that the raiteros, the wildcatters, have a single person who's controlling all of them, who collects a $3 fee for each ride. He says he can't believe that this is continuing to happen, that there's 50 people working under one person, that they're just watching it happen.
Si no traen placas, no traen licencia, placas de Tijuana, y ahí nomás estamos mirando. Nosotros nos echaron fuera de los sitios.
That they don't have valid driver's licenses, they have licenses from Mexico.
Nos echaron
They
para afuera.
run them out of the different sites where. the
Trabajamos
taxis
afuera en
are.
la calle porque ellos ya tienen adueñados los estendes de San Diego. Y espero que nos ayuden y gracias.
That they have kicked them out of the taxi stands, that they're working solely off of street hails. They request help and thank you very much. Okay, final public comment is from Cameron Hamidi.
Good afternoon, Chair, Elo Rivera, and committee members. We came at the last meeting, about 15 drivers, and we asked for help at the border. Thank you for setting up the meeting on April 9th with the district attorney. We still haven't seen anything on the ground, so we need a lot more enforcement on the ground. The website www.otai.pix was set up with all the pictures, or a lot of pictures of the raiteros. And a new report was added there where there was one raitero that was shot and killed by the sheriff's officer, the sheriff's department right there, because he was operating with a stolen vehicle. Inside the vehicle, there were occupants using smoking meth, lace fentanyl, and it's a really bad situation there. You can smell marijuana. The number of raiteros is more than the taxis at the Otay stand. If you can continue the pressure, Officer Carlos Eddington of Southern Division, if he can be contacted. Thank you to CBX on May 1st for their enforcement action with the PUC. But that was just one day. We need a lot more. There are raiteros at different locations that just sit there with an Uber sign, a Lyft sign, and act like they're an Uber or Lyft, but they're accepting cash. So if you can please keep it up, and we'll probably come back, we will
30
come back at the
seconds
next meeting, and we hope to thank you for your enforcement action. Thank you again.
All right, that concludes public comments.
Thank you so much. I just want to start by saying thank you to Lenny for your work in pulling together the wildcatting working group. Julio reported back to me about the meeting that you all had with STPD, PUC, MTS Security, DA's office. I believe there was another council office involved as well. My colleague, Councilmember Moreno. So thank you for that. Understood that it's not necessarily to change the conditions on the ground yet, but it does sound like there's some real work happening to strategize about how to not just address this in the immediate, but have a sustained impact. So it's not just a continuation of the game of whack-a-mole that has occurred in the past. So again, thank you, Lenny, for helping on that front. We'll continue to partner with you on this front and hope that we can make some real progress and keep the committee updated as to what's going on. Do we have any questions or comments Mr. Alcantar, and then Mr. Banks.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, everyone, for your work. Raul Alcantar from CBX. So this issue is very close to us. It's in our backyard, and we've been struggling with the same issue for many years, and it's gotten worse. So we do work closely with the PUC, and it is precisely a game of whack-a-mole. So we're happy to collaborate, join efforts, share information in whatever manner we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alcantar. Mr. Banks?
Yeah. Is it possible for MTS to send the staff to the border, and when it happen, they don't have to talk to them, they call police. I think when the police have them in record, one time, twice, then it may stop. Because they do the same thing on 2 taxi stand on rental car center. People come in, they go inside and talk to them, talk to the people in the rental car center, talk to them on the counter. When they see the customer come out, they haul them. They have a Tijuana plate, but they just take them like Uber and Lyft. So when the ATO start going there, giving them a ticket, then that stop. So if they have MTS go to the border and give them a ticket, maybe 2 or 3 times, they are not, it's going to stop.
What rental
No,
car center you're
we
referring
have a San Diego Airport Rental Car Center, RCC. You know, airport rental car, you know, they move it from the airport to,
Okay.
what is it called, the Kentner? No, to, what is it, didn't,
Terminal Bowling Way. Yep,
yeah,
that-
yeah.
Okay, very well. So what you're saying is that there's some wildcat activity taking place inside there?
Right, so many, like, Tijuana plate, now, but they come in, they are taking the customer, they, you know, be like Uber on Lyft, but it's not true. They're taking the business away from the taxi. So when ATO start going there, giving them a ticket, then they stop. But if MTS go there with the uniform, and when they see them, they call police, when they have their name on the record, I think they're going to stop. If the MTS will go there, when they see happen, then they call the police. The police will have their name on record. You cannot do it. Only the taxi permit can work here, but not Uber and Lyft that is not in record in San Diego.
Well, thank you for bringing that up to our attention, Alfred. And I'll reach out to the airport and Mr. Richard Wilson. Talk about that. That's a primary in this case because it's occurring on airport property. It would, primarily be up to the airport, and we're certainly able to cooperate in any means. But the airport has a dedicated airport traffic personnel, and we need to talk about this. But thank you for bringing it up to our attention.
The MTS issue, the airport is over there. This MTS control the taxi people, but on the border, the MTS would be able to regulate the taxi people, but the people that are not a taxi, they're not supposed to be there.
Yeah, I think this is part of what's tricky though, right? Because they're not taxis. So because they're not
They're
taxis,
not taxi.
we need to pull in other folks to do the regulating of these folks who are acting as taxis but are not actually taxis. Lenny, if you wanted to correct that, by all means.
No, Chair, you're absolutely correct. But most importantly, operating from a officer safety perspective, as Mr. Hamidi just brought up, this is a criminal element.
Yes.
It's no longer a simple regulatory administrative violation there. This is criminal activity. There's been shootings. We cannot, and for the record, Chair, and for the committee, we do conduct site visits at both Otay and San Ysidro areas. For the most part, when the wildcatters do see our officers come around, they move, but then that's it. If we were to issue a citation, but and not only, it's not as easy as that, as far as coming up, well, I know you're a wildcatter, I might issue a cite. There's many other elements that go along with it. So we're just limited on clearing those areas only for us to leave and for them to come back. But again, even with that approach, as our chair mentioned, we want to make this a sustainable effort to where there is actually some consequences to mitigate that activity. And law enforcement is integral to that effort because our inspectors are not armed. We do need law enforcement to cooperate. There's really no other way to effectively address this. And this is what we are doing. We are adding agencies, adding stakeholders to this effort. We had a BTC meeting, which is a Border Transportation Council meeting last week. And Assembly member, the representative from the 80th Assembly District from David Alvarez was there. They are coming on board on this effort, also state resources. So we are taking this matter very seriously, and we will come up with a good action plan. Like everything, it takes a little bit of time, but the goal is to make it sustainable, first and foremost, safe for everybody, and make it sustainable. That way we just don't do this for a month and 2 months and then come back to the square one. So please be patient. All of the resources are being taken into account. And we're always open. Ms. Mala, you and I, speak constantly on many issues. And that's great. You are our eyes and ears out there. But once we launch this, I think I'm certain that we'll have good results.
I wonder if it's not done, they will take over and the tax will not be able to make any money because they will have all their friends doing the same thing. The tax will be there.
Understood. And Mr. Banks, that's exactly why we are prioritizing this and doing what we can to collaborate across multiple agencies and jurisdictions to address this. We know there's the kind of direct on the ground safety issue, as well as you've already had enough of an attack on your ability to make ends meet, right? And we don't need yet another one, this one coming through, kind of through illegal means. We'll go to Mr. Hodoyan and then Mr. Taysom.
Oh, there's some.
Mr. Banks, can we,
Alfred.
Mr. Banks, can we go to Mr. Hodoyan and then Mr. Taysom and then back to Mr. Banks?
That's one.
Mr. Banks, I want to make sure other folks get a chance.
David?
He's first.
Yeah, Mr. Hodoyan's first.
Next, okay,
Yeah.
yes, yes, the only solution that I see, well, thank you, Chair, is to have somebody there at all times. Obviously, that's impossible. The next idea that I'm having, may have a camera and have everything filmed, if you will, or have the drivers with a direct phone line to SDPD or MTS that would answer right away, not the following day or the next 2-3 days. Because there is a problem that's going on, and I understand it's impossible to tackle it down because you have to be there all the time, and you guys are understaffed. You can't. But have cameras and at least having them film, and you can issue tickets by mail. I'm trying to figure out with a solution, but it's, I don't know. Maybe that's how we do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hodoyan. Mr. Taysom?
Yeah, I have a question. What happened to MTS security? Aren't they available 24/7 right now?
So, go ahead, Lenny.
Thank you, Chair. Are you referring to the?
You're talking about trolley stations, right? You're talking about San Isidro and Otay. Aren't they both considered bus stops or MTS stops per the?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so what we have, according to their advertisements on all the trolleys and all the buses, we have quadrupled our security forces, armed state police officers for your protection. Why can't we deploy some of those officers from the buses and from the transits on the buses themselves and put them at the stations that are affected by this Wildcat system and let them run around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? They'll pick them up real fast and kick them out. By the time we get this thing you guys get into action with other plans, you have MTS security already got something on the ground, boots on the ground already, started this now. We have the officers. Why can't we just use them?
Yes, Mr. Taysom. So if you're referring to our code compliance inspectors in our transit security personnel, they're not law enforcement officers. They are public officers under, just to clarify. And their main task is, as you mentioned, to patrol and enforce our MTS ordinance on MTS property. The majority of the wildcat activity takes place on city property. Our regulatory inspectors, based on the nature of their work and the contract, in the contracts that we have with the cities, we are authorized to issue citations whenever we witness a violation of Ordinance 11, that does not necessarily take place on an MTS property such as a station or a parking lot. So that's the main difference. That is why we are joining and we want to cooperate with state and local law enforcement agencies to be able to act upon wildcatting activity at city property, which is where it majorly takes place.
Okay, I've been down to all three of those stuff, CBX and OTI and San Ysidro. And the wildcatters are sitting right on the property there, right on the property of MTS. They're sitting right at the trolley station, right next to like the 907 bus station at San Ysidro. OTI, the same thing, right next to the bus stop. Now, CBX is the only one I think it's got to enforce because they've got private security. And that's all they are, private security. Now, they have the whole control of the whole area. All you have to do is pick up a phone and PD is down so fast, it won't even, you guys get that quick response from Panga PD. You got control there. And what I'm saying is that we put the officers on the boots on the ground, on the stands, at the bus stops or at the trolley stations at both San Ysidro and at the bus station at OTI, where the transit center is, we can get a little, some of this wildcatting until the city and states get involved and start taking over. Can that be an internal solution at the meantime until that happens?
The three locations where this activity takes place, as you can see on the screen, is not MTS property, is City of San Diego property, and MTS does not have, or in this case, security officers or code compliance do not have the jurisdiction to enforce that in these areas.
We don't need to give them tickets. We just need to put the scare into these wildcatters.
Yeah, I think there's,
If you put enough
yeah,
agents, you put
Mr.
guys.
Tatum, I think I understand what you're saying, and I think Lenny does as well. It's not a matter of whether or not we think that would work, it's whether or not that would be appropriate or allowable to have MTS security on non-MTS property. That gets into a lot of different jurisdictional questions that I've never seen resolved quickly. And I think that there'd be some strong feelings about if MTS just popped up there. The whole idea of pulling together this task force is to have that sort of collaboration.
Yeah,
so
but
that there aren't-
we're looking at 90 days plus.
Understood. And so right now, we're doing what we can to put the issue on folks' radar. I don't think that this will get resolved in a long-term way more quickly by having MTS security just start to pop up in different places in the city. I think that'll cause a whole different set of issues that will slow down our ability to focus on the wildcatting that's happened. We'll go to Mr. Abraham. Is there anybody else on this particular topic?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
We'll go we'll go to Mr. Abraham, Ms. Tangway, and then we will wrap this conversation up because we still have, we've got a couple more items actually. So Mr. Abraham?
Yes, Mr. Chair, when there are some people, they have no license to work, are we responsible to respond to them? So MTS are regulating the tax industry, G&E and all this. So there are people that don't have license. Who is responsible? The city. So do we have anything to discuss with this, get a solution?
Yeah, then this is the whole point, right? It's a combination of different authorities depending on what actions are taking place in that given moment. So there's certainly a place for SDPD, but this is my takeaway from the multiple conversations I've had at this point is that when any single agency has tried to deal with this on their own, that is when the whack-a-mole, it becomes a very short-term fix, right? We get somebody to leave for the day, and then the same situation arises the next day. And so to get this handled over the long term so that folks will actually have the confidence of knowing. And there's a certain element of this, I think, if we're being totally honest with ourselves, that this is unlikely to disappear forever, right? You can even have it disappear from a certain area and it'll likely pop up somewhere else in the city. But the more likely it is that, or the better that we've done in providing a comprehensive response, of letting it be known that there are actual consequences, not just having to move, but actual consequences for participating in this sort of activity. That if you are associated with other illegal activity, as you are doing the wildcatting, that there will be consequences for that as well. Again, all of these are aimed at mitigating the likelihood that this is going to happen at all. So yes, SDPD absolutely has a role to play, and which is why we've done what we can to pull them into the conversation. We'll continue to do that, but no single agency is going to resolve this over the long term by itself. MTS, SDPD, District Attorney's Office, none of them. It's going to require collaboration.
Yeah, what I want to is the city have to take the lead to those people we can respond. MTS, they can, most of the people, they can report it, and they don't want to have to involve in such
Right.
kind of,
Right, and this
because
is
they can get hurt, they are not ready for it.
understood, and this is why our office has stepped in.
Thank you.
Ms. Tangway?
Yes, I watched a lady officer, San Diego police officer, write tickets against vehicles which were not taxis on the taxi stand at the Hyatt, Manchester Hyatt downtown. San Diego police used to be in charge of the taxi cabs many years back, so I come from the history of being acquainted with their enforcement of taxi cabs. Any of the stuff going on that's on MTS property, I understand what we're saying about the MTS security officers, but I'm concerned about the safety of all of the officers because there's a lot of serious stuff going on right now, and we need as best safety and as best law enforcement as possible. Obviously, the San Diego PD is at the border. They're the ones that used to write tickets and arrest some of our guys when they were doing something wrong. I've gotten yelped at over this, but the fact was they actually did enforce the law. And we need a safety issue and some extra training perhaps, and point out what's going on and see what we can do to stop this. Because one, the incomes are messed up right now, and two, it is a very serious situation at the border. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenny, thank you again for your work on this, and we're going to keep you all updated on this because it's going to be an ongoing effort, and we'll make sure that the committee has consistent updates on what's going on.
I have one issue. Regarding what Tiger just said, the taxi stand on Marriott McKay and Manchester Grand Hyatt. This Uber, the big car, they stay there, but sometimes when I come there, I say you can park here. They leave. But if the MTS can drive by, and because they argue with the driver and say, no, I'm going to park here. So they only have a few spaces in front of Marriott McKay, but they will park there, big car, one or two, they will leave. Then the taxi will not have a place to park. Also the same thing in front of Manchester Grand Hyatt. If the MTS go there, tell them to leave. If they don't leave, you just call, if you call police, once they get a warning, they will stop because they have been doing it, preventing taxi to park. Marriott McKay and Manchester Grand Hyatt by the street.
Thank you, Alfred. Took note of that. Please feel free to give me a call directly with any other concerns. If our inspectors do, and they do constantly issue parking citations for non-taxi use whenever we encounter either an Uber or any other type of vehicle that's not a taxi that's parked in those areas. I think it's a good time to mention and to bring up to all the drivers that those cab stands are there for you. Unfortunately, they are not occupied most of the time, unbeknownst to me why, but it's something that we would like to bring up. If a taxi cab is occupied, then nobody will be able to park there. So just want to bring that up. Anything else, Alfred, please feel free to give me a call.
All right, thank you so much. Let's move to our next item, which is item number 8. This is just an update on topics for the next advisory committee meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item number 8, topics for our next Taxicab Advisory Committee meeting. At this time, we do request the committee to provide feedback on what topics should be addressed at the next Taxicab Advisory Committee meeting. At this time, our staff recommends the following agenda items. The 2025 for hire vehicle administration fiscal year budget, possible flat rate recommendations for airport originated trips, depending on possible survey results. As I mentioned earlier, we will work together with UTWSD and University of California, San Diego to develop that survey and request driver feedback. And for hire vehicle administration update. Any other feedback that might be provided today or after, you can contact me directly in the office. We'll make note of that and determine if it would be a good item for the next meeting. Thank you, Chair. Questions?
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments on what Lenny's offered as potential agenda items for the next meeting? Okay, and is there any public comment on this?
No public
Okay.
comment.
No public comment, no feedback. We will then move to item number 9. Lenny?
Other items that are not included in the agenda?
If any comments or any comments from any of the board members on?
I have request, Mr. Chairman. This year, you guys reduced the rates of maximum fare per the CPI, correct?
By 10 cents per mile rate.
Okay, my question, well, that too, that was one of the two things. The only thing is, did MTS staff or somebody sent out a bunch of emails to that effect to all owners? And when was that done approximately?
It was communicated at the Taxicab Advisory Committee meeting on February 21st, which is the official method of notifying the taxi industry of the change of rates.
Okay, the emails go out after that effect?
Yes, yes, they did.
Okay, because I'm seeing a lot of cabs, and please don't think I'm not trying to be nosy, but I've talked to a lot of these owners, and they're telling me they never received any emails to that effect about the rate of change fare. And I keep telling them, hey, you know, if you want to keep driving with the maximum rate of fare above the city rates, and Mark and Joe get really bored one day, they start going around checking meters, you're gonna be out of service. What's gonna happen? You know, I have your emails to that effect. I show it to them that they're gonna be out of service if they get caught. And I don't see the enforcement, I don't see the push to get these well regulated into that limit right now. They're not being enforced. You said it's supposed to be done, it's supposed to be started April 21st. And I have not seen that big of a push to reduce the meters. If it was an increase, I'd be at my door, they'd be coming around and say, I want to increase my meter. When it comes down, it's not coming down quick enough. You know, I mean, we got to make someone's gonna make the line and say, okay, we gotta do it now. They're blaming weights and measures for this. I'm like going, weights and measures has nothing to do with it. They don't care what the rates are. As long as it's posted, that's all they need. Is that correct? Right? That's it. I mean, right now, there's probably about 70% of the force that are above that $4 a mile run at 410. And the $32 wait time is now $33 waiting time. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's been going on with that. But I would think, and I would hope that another email go out today, tomorrow, to all the cab companies, and not just the radio dispatchers or whatever, but to actual each owner and say, hey, you're on violation. Your meter's not down, then you're gonna be suspended, out of service.
All right. So Lenny, I don't know if you'd like to follow up with Mr. Taysom after the meeting, provide some additional information there. We'll go to Mr. Banks and then we will wrap it up.
Yeah, this was that issue. You said that people can leave the meter like that. They don't have to change it, but some people make the reduce, some people leave it like that. The way we discussed it last time, people don't have to change it. They can leave it at fast, how you don't make it higher, but you can leave it like that. But because sometime, maybe next year, the little change, whatever, but you can just leave it as fast. You do not make the meter higher, but you can just leave it the way it is. That's what we discussed last time.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Appreciate that. I don't see any other requests to make comments on this item. So agenda item 10 is just letting you all know that our next TAC meeting is July 31st, 2024 at 1 p.m. I will see you all there, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.